Yeah, you do. You only need
Peter
4.
Georgiannis, Selectmen's
Conservation
rep.
Committee meeting September 24th, 2025.
Peter Georgiannis, Selectmen's rep.
Susan Tucker.
Patty Gale, Planning and Zoning Assistant.
Gene Walker.
Courtney Carter.
David Neiman.
Okay. First on the agenda, we have map 2, lot 33C. Request for relief of the outer 50-foot of 100-foot wetland surface water conservation district buffer to build a single-family home that will be located within the outer 50 of the 100-foot setback required from Dam Little Brook. The owner is requesting relief from the outer 50 of the 100 WSWC district buffer per section 13.3.4 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is owned by Albert Bernard and is located on Mountain Base Road, Zone Agricultural and Wetland Surface Water Conservation Overlay District. We have someone here to present that.
Good evening, my name is Earl Sanford of Sanford Surveying and Engineering, here to present for the owner. Yeah, this is a little bit of a tight lot with the brook bisecting the property. But there is significant area that could be developed in the back, and we could get out of the 100 by going across. Does everyone know where this is? This is on Mountain Base Road, just not far from Wallace, about one lot in from Wallace Road. Sorry, I didn't make sure you're oriented. But so this lot's been around for a while, but we're looking to do a fairly modest small house, keeping it away from the 50. Obviously, we couldn't make it work with the 100, which is the orange here. That's the 50 in the green. But I think one of the main selling points is that the alternative to get out of that 100 would be to get a crossing, but that would be a whole lot more impact to try and get back there. Granted, you could build a McMansion because there's all kinds of space back there, but I think it's a wise choice the owner's taken to try and keep a simple house and build it in the front. And I believe we've already got a septic approval. This is a blow up of it, how it would look. Again, this is the 50-foot line we'll be observing, and so we wouldn't have to get a variance. I understand if we needed to pinch in further, we'd have to go for a variance. So that's it. It's a modest-sized house on today's standards, anyway. And I think it's been a reasonable compromise to put something that's that we could fit in. It's also right against the actual road setback as well, so it is a squeeze play. But it's what the owners agreed to, and we're proposing and requesting the comments to be made. We'll be going before the planning board for the conditional use permit, I believe it is, tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll have favorable comments. But and anything else you wanted to, this is a good chance to, if there was some obvious.
Looks like it's quite steep on here.
It is
Going up.
fairly steep. You can see even for the septic system, it's going to have, the slope's going to run down a bit to catch up. But we did make it so that it's right at grade along the back. So we're not filling or cutting along that green line.
Right at the edge of the.
We'll be filling at the top. This ought to be a walkout basement to make that work. So you're coming in at the at level from the road. So there's some fill to make it into the house on the upper level, and then the lower level is set right where it matches the existing grade.
The house is right on the 50-foot setback.
And right on the front setback as well. Like I said, it was a squeeze play, and but it works. As far as that, as far as the setbacks, we're able to adhere to the setbacks.
Okay, we have someone have a comment?
Yes,
Susan?
I walked this yesterday, went down there to see, and you're right, it's a squeeze play. But this damn little brook is what drains Mountain Base Pond and the pond below it. And there's a very, very large culvert that goes under Mountain Base Pond. And the brook itself is probably 10 feet wide in places. It's pretty,
Variable, but yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of water still going through there. And my comment would be, in order to build that house and put the well in where you have the well, you'd have to cut the trees, which shouldn't be done in that setback. But the house butts against the back of the house butts against the line, and I don't think there's any way you can build a house without disturbing some land that surrounds it. And the disturbance of land on that slope heading down to the brook, which is a nice little brook, and it serves a purpose because of the drainage there. I would think that there's going to be disturbance in all that area. To build a septic system and to put in a well, you got to bring a truck down in there, which means you got to cut trees to get a well driller down below.
We looked at it, and the trees are not that dense that we felt we could get it in there, but that's.
Well, but there are trees, and usually we don't ask that you cut any trees that are in the setback.
And I think we would adhere to that if that was a request.
How can you build a house, though, up against the setback without cutting a tree? I mean, I just don't, you said it's a squeeze, and it is a squeeze. It's a squeeze, and it's a sloping lot.
Well, I was
The water
thinking of trees
drains.
for the well,
Right.
and yes, yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it's a good situation for the homeowner, nor for the purpose of that brook, when you have a lot of water going through there, and it's, anyway,
Other
that's my
comments?
comment.
Stephen?
Yeah, I also went out to take a look at it this afternoon. So, of course, we have these setbacks for a reason. And there are variances often made to the setbacks, and what we usually will see is somebody say, oh, I want some relief from the outer 50, because I'm right at the edge of it and I want to build a deck and I'm making some minimal impact. That's not the case here. We're talking about the entire house being built within the wetland setback. That is just way over the top as far as I'm concerned. Furthermore, that house being right up against the line of that inner 50-foot setback, I mean, this is a joke to assume that the inner 50 is not being impacted. I mean, the walkout basement's walking right out into it. There's gonna be a yard around this. This is gonna be disturbed. And so when I looked at the plan, frankly, I was shocked just looking at the paper plan. I thought this is one of the worst things that's ever come before us. And then I went out to the site and looked at it. This is all sloping down. This is like a funnel going right down into the brook. I mean, it's the worst possible situation. So I can't be more than 100%, but if I could, I would be opposed to this. I think this is just totally wrong and totally against the whole spirit and notion of having the variance to be able to make reasonable accommodations, because this is not reasonable in any way, shape, or form.
He's not here for the variance, he's here for the relief to the, asking for the planning board, and it's,
Well,
the
whatever it is,
yeah.
I'm a strong vote no.
So, I just wanna point out though, if he was to do, would you have to do like a bridge? Is that what you're saying, to cross over?
We'd have to get a crossing to
Yeah.
get to that
They
substantial.
can put a
A
driveway,
substantial, I mean,
through the
usually when
buffer.
there's substantial upland on the backside,
yeah,
you can get the relief from the state.
okay.
And that would be coming before you for something here where we could get across and then go through past the 100. And that's allowed. You can put a driveway in your 100-foot. That doesn't need the positivity that we're looking for,
Well,
so.
we understand that.
So it's
Yeah.
like, I would think that you know, a little leniency up here saves a whole lot of potential.
I would say
Impact.
the exact opposite. Yes, there's gonna be disturbance at the time of building the road and building the bridge, but once it's in, the impact from that would be negligible compared to having a house there. Having all the runoff that occurs with the property, I think it's a far, far worse idea than the alternative of having to span something to go to the back part.
I guess
Susan?
yeah, I guess the other comment would be, Al Pinard lives next door, and he's got a driveway. I don't know how big his lot is, I mean, it's not us to make a plan, but he's got a driveway, and he owns this lot. I don't know, there's shared driveways all over town now, aren't there? The access to the backland would be on the other side of the brook,
Good point.
on the other side of the culvert. And if they used his driveway to come to reach the dry land out back, you know, did they ever consider that option?
I believe so, but I wasn't sure whether that's an acceptable
Right,
shared
right,
driveway
right.
thing, but if you wanted to make that a recommendation, I would be happy to pass that along.
I'm not sure we can make that recommendation without looking at what,
Well, it's-
what the landform is like in the back of his house, but it isn't the brook, you know, it's,
I mean,
It's
shared
not-
driveways are allowed, the planning board doesn't like shared
right,
driveways.
right, right,
I'm gonna
but,
say that.
but in this case, it would be, if he's really wants to build a house somewhere on this lot,
Wouldn't be running into the brook.
he wouldn't be dealing with the brook would be in the front.
It wouldn't have the expense of building the bridge.
Pardon me?
And wouldn't have the expense of building the bridge,
A
'cause
bridge,
that would be
right.
a substantial
Right.
expense.
Because I think by the amount of water that could go through that brook, if you see the wash that's occurred on the sides, which you saw with the tree roots and things, I mean, when Mountain Base Pond is full and it's overflowing, and the water passes through that other little pond, it probably comes in a torrent down through there. Crosses under Wallace Road, it ends up again, you know, eventually in the Piscataqua. But you can see that there's been a lot of heavy water that's gone through that brook.
That's part of my, and I'm by no means nearly as well versed, but my first concern was similar to that, is like how close it is to that stream. There's some steepness, but it's not, you know, it's not 50 or 100 feet elevated above that stream, and thinking about like the Mother's Day flood or other significant events, that how that affected that part of town and how much water could come through there. Like to what David's saying, even if you took out other concerns, that there may be some problems down the road for the homeowner or the tenant, you know, whomever ends up living here, that I would be worried about.
Is that in a flood zone?
No,
Okay.
and there's enough, I mean, there's enough slope that the concern, you could have a monumental flood or stream, or even flood out the road, take the road out, and it still wouldn't be up to the elevations where we're proposing, but that's,
Anybody else? So either the brook is all the concern and cutting. So,
So
David?
I think a clarification, because Patty, you made a statement that we're not voting about the relief of the outer 50 feet, and yet on our agenda it says
You are
request
doing
for the
relief.
and
You call
this
it a
is the
variance.
document.
That's why I
Okay.
said it's not a variance.
Gotcha, I said variance was my mistake, use that term.
in a variance, we wouldn't have the same, we would be going for
Report.
something tighter,
The
which,
relief of the 50.
They designed it to get out of the 50 for the structure. And then so this goes to planning, that's why they did the impacts, the report that goes with it, because that's, they can grant relief based on your recommendations and, this wetlands assessment report. The values and functions.
So do we have any other concerns, or do we want to make a motion on this
Well,
Go ahead. Your words for the mic.
well, you can augment them, please. I move that we vote to make a recommendation against the relief of the outer 50 feet of this for a number of reasons. First of all, it's not like it's some slight impact. It is entirely located within the Wetland Surface Conservation District. It is on a slope. It's going to drain down to and impact directly into the stream. The whole property is on a slope heading towards the stream. The edge of the house is literally on the line of the inner 50, and you know, it's just a fantasy to suggest that therefore the inner 50 isn't being impacted, because it has to be impacted. There's, you know, people are gonna have a yard behind their house. They're not gonna have a wall or just right outside the walkout basement. I just think it's completely inappropriate, and you know, there are other ways if they really, really want to build on the lot to get back to the high and dry part. There are at least 2 other options available to them.
Okay. We have a second on that? Susan?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
All right, thank you for your
Well, thank
time.
you for coming in.
Some more homework, bro.
So if we go for the variance, do I have to come back, or do we just use
A
this?
variance should still would have to come back. They have
Yeah.
to make a recommendation on a variance as well,
Yeah,
if you were to go in the inner.
yeah,
If you design it with a road, that's all through the state and DPW, not the road, but the driveway. Depending on the size, you have to meet the NFPA guidelines, the fire, I think it has to be like
16 or something
Yeah.
like that, but yeah.
feet wide, you have to meet their guidelines. But
Yeah.
you are allowed to go through the buffer, and then you can cross the wetlands when there are no alternative.
One of the factors that I said, whether it matters, didn't say, is that this lot pre-existed any of this regulation for
It
protection.
did pre-exist, it is a pre-existing lot, that,
So, you know, not that that matters to you, but thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And, okay, do we have a correction or on the acceptance of the minutes? Anybody have any questions on it? Okay,
Yeah, on the vote to cover the conference I went to, I did abstain on that vote. It wasn't 7-0-0.
so we,
David abstained on the vote.
Yeah.
okay, somebody wanna make a motion to accept them? Susan, a second? Somebody second that?
David, can you second
Yes,
it?
I'm sorry. I thought she already had,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Okay, Jane's not here for the river. And David, do you have anything for open space?
I
Yeah.
can talk about the Scottsbluff River.
Oh,
Yes,
you
I'm the
have
chairman
river.
of that. Whoa. Hey, we didn't have a meeting, because there's really nothing to talk about. But we do have an invitation out to someone from the Maskey to come talk to us at our next meeting about the issues that they have out there. So hopefully, they're gonna be able to make it and come to our next meeting in October. But we
Okay.
canceled the meeting, we don't have anything to talk about, I mean.
Nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, David,
Yeah, before we do that,
you want me to do
Just-
that?
well, before we talk about the open space, I just,
The application for,
Dan is here, yeah, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Dan King, and I met David Neiman a few years ago through a project that we were doing to conserve our family farm. So Clark Ridge Farm, I operate and manage that, and we worked with PLC and Goffstown Conservation Commission to conserve that. a few years ago. Anyway, during that process, got to know David, got to see the work that the Conservation Commission was doing and wanted to get involved. I also have 3 little boys and was not ready for it, but they're a little older now and was looking to get involved. And so contacted David and he said, fill this out and we'll vote you in. But no, in all seriousness, I would love to try to contribute and again learn from the process and be involved with what's going on. So
And we need to make a recommendation to send his name to the selectmen, so,
Yeah, because we
somebody,
don't vote you in, the select board does.
okay,
We just
gotcha.
make a
Right,
recommendation.
and those are the things I need to
Then we
learn.
have an open spot?
we do, because we had callers,
Oh, okay, right.
so, somebody wanna make a recommendation for Daniel King for our board?
I'll make a recommendation that we send a recommendation to the select board to appoint Dan King
Okay,
to the Conservation Commission. I guess the only openings we have are alternates right now, so it'd be an alternate.
I thought Collis
Or
was
do we-
full, wasn't he?
No, I think it was an alternate. I have to go online and look, but I believe it was an alternate.
yeah, but I think there's an opening, right?
Yeah,
Alternate's fine, whatever
But
works.
if a full slot was open, I
Does-
would
okay,
recommend
wait a
that as
second,
well, because Dan's bringing a lot of knowledge to the commission, a lot of knowledge and experience, and plus he's been on the other side of the whole process and knows that well, because, you know, their family did not 1 but 2 easements, you know, the other side of the road that he's managing is Forest Society easement from
Okay,
quite a few years ago.
yes,
Yeah.
And I think he'd probably let them know that an alternate generally is a voting member unless we have a full board. So basically, an alternate speaks and
just can't vote.
just cannot vote on the final issue
If there's
if
a
we
full-
have
if
if
there's a
we
full-
have a quorum, but
And as you can see, that
Got a
we don't,
quorum, full
yeah,
board.
there's,
And
Yeah.
alternate here, it means that when everybody's here, the pressure's off, and I'm like,
Yeah.
good. I
Nice.
don't have to know all the things.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
but you have full voice on the board.
You-
sure.
And there's no difference.
No difference, so that is just the vote part, okay.
and to show you tonight, you would have been appointed as a vote, like, you're a voting member tonight,
Yeah,
because there 4 is a quorum,
gotcha,
so then they just,
Right.
Peter doesn't vote as a select board rep.
gotcha.
So we have a second on that?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll send that on to the selectmen.
Yeah, and I'll give them that. 'cause they-
Now, David,
Okay, well, a couple of things. First of all, looks like there's finally some movement starting in Washington with the NRCS to get those final funds released on the Sugar Bush Farm Shost easement. There's been a bit of delay with federal grants,
Yeah, I was,
people being fired and nobody there to do the paperwork.
yeah, I've been having NRCS issues too.
So, but at any rate, they're finally making motions, and now they're, apparently when it gets to the very end, then they do one more look at the property to see if the valuation has changed. You have to have appraisals at the beginning to submit the grants, and appraisal at the end, and if the value is actually up, then NRCS will actually cut a bigger check. So, not a bad thing. Which, you know, the difference would go to the owner. So I asked Stacy Hernandez, said, okay, so please send me a copy of where the budget is right now, you know, the exact numbers, so I can share that with everybody in the commission. And I guess there's more copies we needed. And wasn't really much of a change. I wasn't sure because I knew that the appraiser that they initially hired, that did the initial appraisal, retired, because it's been taking so long, and so they had to go find another one to do the update, but that turned out not to be a major increase, so we're good. So nothing's changed in terms of what we voted, the 95,000, that stays the same. And things changed in terms of the other grant awards, the NRCS $270,000, that won't go down, but it could possibly go up a bit. And as you can see, the total income is slightly less than the total project cost, and any differences in the end will be absorbed by the Forest Society from, funds that they have to cover those small discrepancies at the end, so.
It's good, because I was gonna offer $12 if we need it.
Guess it is only $12. But these are, some of the costs are estimates, they could actually come in higher. I've never seen it be more than maybe 2,000, 3,000 discrepancy at the most. So that's that with that. It looks like, hopefully it's gonna happen sometime in October, and it'll finally be done. Okay, so I went to the Northeastern Old Growth Conference, and it was spectacular. It was, I think, even better than 2 years ago. You had, top forest researchers from all over the country, including this time they even brought in people from Great Lakes and out on the West Coast to give their perspective on experiences that they have out there. People like I was, having meals and conversations with William Moomaw, who the name may not mean anything, meant a lot to me. Because, back in my oceanography days, I used to read a lot of his research papers. He was, major climate research, participated in all the international IPCC conferences, and, so it was significant seeing a lot of the research and presentations. There is a organization that was started by David Foster, who used to be the director of the Harvard Forest. And again, Harvard Forest is the longest standing institution doing forestry research in the country. And if you're ever down in the Petersham area, I highly recommend you stop at Harvard Forest and go through their Fisher Museum. It's all free. That for years I've read about these dioramas that they have showing how the forest changes over time, and I'm like, yeah, dioramas, whatever, who cares? Can't be that big a deal. But the reviews, always raving. And I finally went to see them, and it was like, holy crap, these things are incredible. So if you're ever in that area, by all means, stop and take a look at them. So David Foster and a bunch of the other groups, they put an organization together a few years ago called Wildlands, Woodlands, Farmlands, and Communities, and the purpose of it is to really integrate all the different groups and associations and, get all the data coordinated and groups working together, and it's starting to have good results. This is a publication that they put out. It's not highly technical at all. This is, really for the general public, but it's got enough details to be meaningful. And it's, I'll just start passing these out. Really summarize where things are, where things stand in New England. What forests do we have? What state are they in? What's the ownership? What's, potential visions going forward for how things can be better integrated and expanded. And it's a very good read. And well referenced with the literature in the back if you want to dive into more detail. I also got copies of this much shorter little booklet. It's from the University of Vermont. Guide to Forest Carbon in the Northeast. And, talks about how is forest carbon estimated and measured, because you're going to be hearing a lot more about that in the years going forward, because it's kind of a critical piece of the whole conservation picture, is how can we sequester more carbon permanently to help to bring it down. If it wasn't sequestering the carbon it is already, as bad as things are now, carbon content in the atmosphere, CO2 would be probably twice what it is, if it wasn't for what the forests have been pulling out, especially in New England where the forests have been regrowing. We're a carbon sink. So this is good. It gives basic information. It's not completely up to date in some of the most recent research though, where they've been, looking at, but how do you compare carbon sequestration in old growth forests versus secondary growth, new growth. And the differences are startling. It's so much higher in the old growth forest, contrary to what people have been saying for years, which was based on just saying it without actually doing the research. But anyway, it's useful information.
Is that just because of the density of the wood and or is the composition of the soil?
Yeah, the soil actually is probably the biggest part of the sink, because the soil builds up so deep in old growth forest. I mean, if you have the chance to go visit one and walk through it, it's like you're walking on a big sponge. It's, so deep and so dense, and these giant logs fall down and they look like they're just melting into the ground, as they age over time. And it was like, one place in the old growth, it was a field trip, of course, on Saturday. In this one part of the old growth, and you see the logs that have fallen and how they, so-called nurse logs and seedlings start on top of them that otherwise couldn't sprout. And then you can find traces of older logs long gone, which you can tell because the trees are still in that, in a row where the log had been. You dig down into it, and the deeper you go, you realize that's just still a lot of decomposing wood several feet down. That's the biggest part of the sink. But also the large trees, there was a belief put forward by a lot of foresters that, when the tree gets old, they don't grow much anymore. It's the young trees growing that are, that's just not true. It's not true at all. The dendrologists who look at the tree rings, they could show it to you, even on a big, huge log. The growth rings shrink and expand depending on the season. Like this year we had a really wet spring, and you may have noticed how much trees were growing in the spring. This will be a good year. It'll be a thick ring, a lot of carbon. If it had been a drought in the spring, it'd be the opposite. And when you're putting on a thick ring on a tree trunk this big around, as opposed to with this big around, that's a heck of a lot more carbon being sequestered. And of course, when those big logs fall, they last for a long time, and allows that carbon to get buried even more. So there's now that they're getting the data and building the models and graphs, it literally, the difference is leaving the old growth forest alone, how much carbon does it sequester versus forests that are cut in different stages, and they make out the graphs, and it's something like 200, 300 years before those other forests begin to catch up. That's a huge difference, and we don't have that much time. So I think the other thing too, when you look in here and see it, some of the patterns and what's going on, you'll find there's a few surprises. Things aren't exactly what you might have thought they were.
Thank you, David. Okay, do we have anything else? Want to make a motion to adjourn? Susan,
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
No,
Opposed?
I,
Okay,
Whoa.
we're finished with the meeting?
okay, Dan, this is a good meeting to come to.
You guys
not
are
long.
quick, efficient, it's great.
Has it-
Where is
They haven't turned it on.